Since the release of Endgame, people have constantly been wondering about whether or not the MCU is done for. I mean, they're obviously going to keep making these movies as long as they're profitable, but creatively speaking, is there more to do with these characters after the big conclusion that was Endgame? Well, Marvel has recently released 3 shows to answer this question: WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and more recently, Loki. I actually have a lot to say about these 3 shows, and I was planning to do one video talking about them all at once, but seeing how Loki recently ended and how I need to get more engagement into this channel, I think that it's better if I do just one review specifically based around Loki. But I have a better idea. Now, you know me, this channel was basically made out of spite, so I have plenty of people I want to make videos about, and we'll get there. Much like the bride, I have a list of people whose day of reckoning will come. But for now, let's focus on just one. I present to you Will Jordan, or the Critical Drinker. He's part of the "our entertainment is destroyed by women and SJWs that hate white men and our beloved characters" type bullshit that these pseudo-intellectuals want to peddle you. And surprise surprise, his latest video is no different. Now, don't worry, Drunkard over here has committed many sins that I will cover one day. I'm far from done with this guy, don't worry. I'll personally make sure he regrets having said Rian Johnson's name in vain. So when he isn't ripping off Tom Clancy in his books, he's ripping off Mr. Plinkett from Red Letter Media. His videos are basically like Plinkett's, only that without the sense of humor, self-awareness, wit, constructive criticism,
6.5 hours later,
deep analysis, fix any problems that the film might actually have, and so on. So basically a dime store version of Plinkett. Oh, and he has a Scottish accent that might be the only thing that is thicker than his actual skull. Now before we continue, you might need to know what I think of Loki. What did I think of it? Well, I thought it was pretty good. It had some flaws, sure, mostly minor, nothing really that pulled me out of the experience, and I think that out of the 3 shows it may be the most consistent one. Although I do need to rewatch WandaVision so that I can be 100% sure about that. Anyways, based off the title alone, I think I can tell that he didn't like it, because he calls it slow, muddled, and badly written. Now I get that that's how most people refer to his books, but I don't think that's a fair way to sum up Loki, especially considering that it was actually pretty good. But I don't know, maybe he has found something that I didn't saw, so let's see if it's worthy of such a scathing title. So right off the bat, Drunkard shows his critical prowess with this.
But he's barely launched into his first ridiculously self-aggrandizing speech before a bunch of black stormtroopers show up and body-positive space cop stuns and captures him.
Whoa, that went off the deep end real quick. First of all, what does any of this have to do with body positivity? She looks like what you expect a soldier to look like. Then he shows us that he hasn't even bothered to keep up with the lore by saying that Loki is half Asgardian.
I guess we'll just overlook the fact that Loki is half Asgardian.
Really? Half Asgardian? Did you even see the movie? Man, he doesn't even bother to check with the lore. Maybe he should put the bottle down and check the lore before he starts making these videos. Also, this guy says slow down time. That's a pretty big plus if you are fighting against, well, anyone. She didn't do it with the power of body positivity, as he claims. What, did you think that it's like He-Man? And she grabbed the baton and said, "I have the power of body positivity." I honestly can't wrap my head around that. That's such a weird statement to make. He takes great issue at the fact that Loki was taken down so easily, because he shows us taking down one guy and throwing around some furniture. Yeah, he was absolutely stoppable in the films, right? But you know what? I think that he's right, because I always took great issue with this one scene from the Avengers in which Hulk throws Loki around without any effort, because we all know that Loki is half Asgardian, has superhuman strength, endurance, and reflexes, so he could easily fend off an attack like that. How dare they disrespect a character like Loki like that? Oh, but you just wait. This gets worse, much worse.
So body-positive space cop takes Loki to diverse commander lady.
Really? Diverse commander lady? Again, what? Why is he so fixated on such trivial things? Does he really refer to any character that isn't white as diverse so-and-so? Man, that would be quite a problem. Imagine referring to all characters that aren't white as diverse. Yikes. It seems that he was so distracted by this that he begins to ask questions that the show answers pretty obviously.
Wait, shouldn't Tony Stark be erased since he's the one who invented the time machine?
We're not here to talk about the Avengers.
Oh no?
No. What they did was supposed to happen. You escaping was not.
And he seems to be arbitrarily drawing lines as to what he accepts as plausible.
How the fuck would you even begin to monitor something as infinitely vast and complex as the universe, where literally trillions of possible outcomes are decided every single nanosecond? How do the space lizards decide what the correct flow of events should be?
So let's run his logic for a moment. This is a universe where there are mythical gods that wield powers like controlling lightning and shapeshifting. That's completely plausible. A purple guy that can get 6 gems on a glove and make half the universe disappear. Completely plausible. A regular guy that manages to create a time machine to stop said purple guy? Completely plausible. An organization led by one of the most powerful characters in Marvel's history that monitors and detects timelines if they are too dangerous? I mean, he's right, that's definitely going too far. It's not like that already existed in the comics. He's definitely not nitpicking, I'm sure of it. I tell you, I think he's onto something. He then, predictably, goes on to attack Sylvie, and even though she's an anti-hero in the same vein as Loki, he paints her as a woman that can do no wrong and whose actions are completely justified because, and I quote,
"Because as you know, no woman is capable of being evil according to modern Hollywood."
He, conveniently might I add, leaves key details like that Sylvie has been on the run since she was a kid, and that diverse commander lady, as he calls her, is actually working for the bad guys. So yeah, maybe you should pay a little more attention to the show before making such shitty criticisms. He then makes what I think is one of the worst recaps I've ever heard of Loki, skipping key details here and there, asking stupid questions that are either explained in the show or that are arbitrarily picked out of basically nowhere, and make some of the most unfunny jokes I have heard in a very long time. He keeps showing this clip of Black Widow hitting her head against the desk, which is from the recent movie, and Tyrion from Game of Thrones throwing up. He keeps showing them over and over again, so I have to assume that he thinks that those are funny, and that maybe if he keeps showing them enough times, they're going to be funny. But spoiler alert, they're not funny! After the lousy recap, he goes on to call the show disrespectful, but he doesn't really explain why.
Honestly, just when I think the MCU can't get any dumber or more disrespectful to its own legacy, along comes something like Loki to totally subvert my expectations. This show is an insult, not just to Marvel or its characters, but to basic storytelling, common sense and human intelligence. It's a perfect example of what happens when hubris, agenda and greed take priority over storytelling. A show made by people who either don't understand or openly hate the very property they've inherited.
And what he says can barely be seen as anything that made me see the show in a different way. He tries really hard to paint this show as some kind of SJW trash, and he keeps talking about the message.
Or simply don't care about anything except using them as a platform for the message.
Which, I don't know what the message is, but I think it has to do something with this scene.
Or perhaps another prince.
A bit of both. I suspect the same as you.
I'm sure that scene didn't affect his criticism in any way or made him biased against it. No, I'm sure his criticisms are all valid. Like when he says that he's angry that the new Loki is a completely different character, almost as if the Loki we have grown accustomed to from movies like Thor Ragnarok is now gone, and this Loki is only the one we've seen after the Avengers, who had a pretty big crisis after he realizes that there is nowhere for him to go, and that the thing that he has been after for so long is meaningless in the place he is now, thus making this character develop much different from the one Loki that we actually know. Later on, he does acknowledge that scene that I mentioned earlier, and he makes the most hilarious joke of all time.
But hey, at least he's bisexual now, as we find out in a blink and you'll miss it scene that I'm willing to bet 99% of the audience didn't even notice or care about. Oh my god, I was literally shaking.
Ha!
Absolutely hilarious. What's sad is that I think that there were actually some flaws you could have made for a case against Loki. I've heard some people say that they don't like the show all that much because they think it's too similar to Rick and Morty, which makes sense because both shows share a writer. Another thing that I've heard a lot of people say that I consider a valid criticism is that these new Marvel shows, and especially Loki and WandaVision, seem to kind of take away the impact from the deaths that happen in the MCU movies. For example, Loki's death in Infinity War now has much less value now that we know that he is alive, albeit not in the same form, but that he's still alive, and thus, with characters being able to reappear given some explanation by the plot, makes the deaths seem sort of meaningless. But nah, all he says is SJW's this, woke that, you know, whatever. I'm surprised, I'm really surprised that he didn't make a joke saying, this isn't the Loki we know, this is Jake Loki. You know, that stupid joke they make with The Last Jedi. Oh wait, I shouldn't be giving him ideas, so scratch that. This is all made so that his brain-dead followers can say, oh yeah, those SJWs are really ruining all of our beloved characters from the MCU. I think that's the new trend they're going to try to go for, because recently Star Wars is doing alright, so they can't bitch and complain about that, so they need to look something. And hey, Marvel is also owned by Disney, and they are sharing this SJW woke agenda, so let's try to take them down. Which is kinda pathetic, honestly, because no one is really up in arms about any of these three shows. Sure, some like one show more than the others, or dislike one more than the others, but in general, there's no real toxicity they can take advantage for, and I'm sure that is definitely affecting their bottom line. I mean, hell, it seems that even some of his regular viewers didn't like this video, so I would be really interested to see how this video is seen by his not usual audience. But then again, we are talking about the guy that wasn't impressed by the Suicide Squad trailer, yet liked Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm really interested to see how is he going to react to this film. Is he going to take the L and admit how good the film actually is, or is he going to call it a woke and SJW propaganda as he usually does? Looking at it that way, it makes sense as to why he would want to not be very specific with the criticisms for Loki. He needs to balance between being vague enough that you can't call him out on his bullshit and call him a racist or a sexist or a homophobe, but specific enough that his rabid fanbase will understand, oh yeah, those SJWs are really ruining this show. That's why he has to resort to calling out the writers and directors talentless hacks.
The hallmark of shitty writers is their inability to elevate their own mediocre work, either through lack of talent, intelligence, or creativity, so instead they resort to tearing down everyone else to make themselves look better.
Boy, you're one to talk about shitty writers, Mr. Generic Spy Action Thriller. I mean, look at some of the names here. Redemption, Sacrifice, Something to Die For. Holy shit, this sounds like one of those movies within a movies you see that the characters from the movies are watching. I mean, how more generic can you get? Because even though the writers have been working on other projects that have been critically acclaimed, they have to make them paint as a bunch of crazy woke SJWs that hate white men so that they can justify their anger when they find out that a woman directed most of the episodes.
And for anyone still clinging to the idea that the MCU isn't taking a one-way trip down woke avenue, I suggest you check your privilege before going into Loki. Every single position of command and authority is occupied by either a woman or a person of colour, or both. And of course, they're always smarter, faster and better than men at everything, including unarmed combat, which is pretty fucking funny if you've ever seen a legit fight between the two genders.
Yeah, you know me, my favorite woman or person of color is Owen Wilson. And what about all of the other Lokis? Do they count as women or person of color? Basically, this channel and all of the other channels that he just so happens to be associated with are all based around plausible deniability. So when you call them out in their bullshit and call them racists, they will say, I'm not a racist, I'm just against forced diversity. When you call them out for being homophobic or having some sort of bigotry against someone's sexual orientation, they will say, I'm not a homophobic, I'm against wokeness. And when you call them out for discriminating women for their specific body type, they will say, I don't discriminate anyone, I'm just against body positivity. Because all of these channels, the miserable sons of bitches that they are, they don't get any enjoyment or excitement out of watching these shows. The only excitement, if you can call it that they get, is basically from quote-unquote triggering or owning some imaginary SJW. And as long as that imaginary SJW is seething and coping or getting triggered by what they say, then they've already won, and they transmit that message to other miserable sons of bitches that also want to own an imaginary SJW in their minds. Because imagine if Drunkard had said that he actually liked the Loki show. Imagine he liked the show that, in his own words, have a diverse commander lady and a body positive space cop. The heads of his rabid fanboys would explode because all that they have been believing this whole time was a lie. So I guess it was inevitable that Drunkard was going to hate this show regardless of what it did or didn't do. So then you might be thinking that it's pointless to make a video about him, right? Well, I disagree. I think that if you're watching this video and you like his content or believe any of the lies that he has been spreading, him or his associates that is, and I have at least made you change your mind even in the slightest, then this video did its purpose. And if you wholeheartedly believe in all of the stupid shit that these people say, then, well, one tiny video will not affect those beliefs, right? Right? Well, either way, I've said my piece, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry if this got a little personal at times, but I really have a bone to pick with this guy. And trust me, I have a lot of material to work with about this guy, like this video from The Last of Us Part 2 that says, Joel did nothing wrong, the importance of ambiguity. But wait a minute, if he didn't do anything wrong, then why talk about the importance of ambiguity? Don't know. Well, I know that criticizing someone like Drunkard is not gonna affect my channel or the like to dislike ratio of this video, right?
Oh my goodness!
Fiddlesticks. Well, if turfnation's video got brigaded by his rabid fanbase, and considering how he is very diplomatic and eloquent with what he says, I don't stand much of a chance here. But if the top comment in that video says that turf has no influence, considering how I have even less influence, then I think I can say whatever I want. So if you came to hate on this video, you know, do the usual, leave a hateful comment and a dislike, say that I'm strawmanning or projecting, fuck you, and as for you, critical drinker, eat shit and get fucked.
You know the rules, and so